how's it going, YouTube? I wanted to make a couple of really quick points here. And this is kind of moves along the line of logic and reason, using logic and reason in spiritual and religious beliefs. And here's something I want to throw out there. First of all, my particular position doesn't matter much. If you're interested, I comfortably rest in the null hypothetical state that the world is strictly physical, that there is no spiritual reality, and I am perfectly okay with the idea that when I die, that's it. It's lights out. It's like going to sleep and just not waking up. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that because it is a possibility. However, I have kind of made it my personal duty to myself to scientifically and logically, through reason, logic, and proper analysis, decide if there is a spiritual reality. And how I have decided to do this is by testing it via the spiritual practices that allow you to test it, such as astral projection. I've become fairly, I don't know, I'd say I've become somewhat okay at getting out. I probably say I get anywhere from one to three projections per week. And when I remember to, I try to test it. There appears, okay, this is a completely different video. What I'm trying to get at is this. I am, by default, atheistic and materialistic. However, I have a drive to try to see if I can actually prove either the existence of, well, to try to prove or see if I can actually verify whether or not there is a spiritual reality. So, for me, this has become somewhat of a experiment, okay? So, that's where I'm at. I believe in the possibility of a spiritual reality. Because of my stance, I have a particular view on the nature of the spiritual world. It definitely does not coincide with Christianity, maybe a little bit with Hinduism and Buddhism and some of the more Western occult traditions. However, the point of this video is that I've realized something a little interesting about this. And man, logical fallacies are a pain in the ass, and the reason why is because we have two camps, basically, on our Earth. We have more or less the materialists, and we have the spiritualists. We have those who believe that this is it, kaboom, and we have those that believe that there is something else. Let me tell you that being outside of your body in what appears to be the physical world is pretty tempting. It's pretty tempting to go ahead and say, yep, spiritual reality exists. I've been there. I've been out of my body. However, there have been some occurrences that tend to detract from that, which is why I have decided to fall back into the null hypothetical state of this is what I know right now. If there is a spiritual reality, I will be able to test it through certain practices and verifiable methodologies. Okay. However, I have come up with a third possibility. Now, between these two camps, the materialists and the spiritualists, we have different sets of methods of going about proving stuff. Obviously, I've completely discarded the, well, I prayed about it and I felt a burning in my heart, or I felt the love of God enter my soul, because that doesn't really work. We know that this is a completely unsubstantiated method and completely fallible. It's not reliable. It's completely not reliable. I can have these spiritual feelings at any time. In fact, I've learned how to induce pretty intense spiritual feelings by simple meditation. And the fact that I can induce that very same feeling that I once used to consider answers from God is telling us something, that if there is a spiritual reality, that spiritual answers or indications or verifications can actually be counterfeited. They can be duplicated, they can be counterfeit, they can be manipulated by even somebody who is not a master of meditation. And if that's possible, then it's even more likely that if there is a spirituality, that entities out there are very skilled at this art and have quite a reign of control over a large population of the earth. Okay, now, the third possibility that I have been considering is somewhere in between the idea of materialism and spiritualism. And you're going to say, okay, whatever, dude, how are you going to have something between those two? And this is how. I believe that it is possible that you can have a spiritual experience and an actual verifiable spiritual experience without a spiritual reality. So the scientists who have gone fringe and decided to look into some of this stuff have actually found some interesting things. A lot of the mainstream scientists look at their work and say, nah, it's bogus, they're in the field of psi, we're not even going to look at that, and they discount it 100%. I tend to at least consider what they present. If they're frauds, they're usually pretty easy to find out. If they're not frauds, I definitely give those groups that have high credentials and have a side branch of an actual university, especially the Ivy League level universities that have little side research departments. I find it not completely impossible, but highly unlikely that these men would fraud out on this stuff because there is just so much at stake. However, it's not impossible. So I do take their research with a grain of salt. However, the point is that they have found some interesting things. There are some fascinating things out there that tend to indicate that there is at least something else going on that we're not privy to yet. Now, how are we going to have spiritual experiences that can be verifiable without an actual spiritual reality? And this is how. Stuart Hameroff has done some work with the brain. He's a man, what is he? A medical doctor, I believe. He did some work with Roger Penrose and came up with the objective reductive, the orchestration, Oak or R theory. The orchestrated objective reductive theory. Mouthful. Basically what this is more or less that consciousness is not an emergent property of the brain per se, but may be a property, an emergent property between the brain and quantum fluctuations. Now I know that's kind of the buzzword in the spiritual world right now, and I get that. A lot of people try to use quantum shit to verify things. I'm not going to do that. Stuart Hameroff actually has some pretty interesting things to say about it. If you look at his papers and look at his research, they've received quite a bit of notice. They have been kind of skeptically looked at by the mainstream, but they have not been disproven. In fact, they have received quite a bit of peer review that shows that he may not be totally correct, but may be onto something. Now, the interaction between the microtubules and the quantum state of the brain, and how you can have actual quantum state mechanics happening in a body temperature solution. He's got a lot of the stuff covered. It's very fascinating work. Definitely a possibility he's got a lot of stuff wrong, but it's also a high probability that he's onto something interesting. For the reason that we're conscious, it's weird, we don't understand it, and it's a property that must be emergent because it is not a normal property of matter. That is for sure. As far as we know. It may be, I don't know. Here's the point. The point is, if there is quantum interactions going on in the brain, and if we are connected to other people mentally, this doesn't necessarily indicate that you have a spiritual body. In fact, all it indicates is that we are mentally connected to all things in the universe, but only psychically connected to other conscious beings. Now, there may be the possibility that this interaction can cause actual psychic perception, or dreams of events that may happen, a sort of kind of fuzzy interpretation of what is being transmitted into the brain. And that's okay, I get that. I think that is possible to have that without actually having a spirit. However, it would be nice to have a spirit and not to just, lights out when it's over, but if that's the way it is, that's the way it is. There's nothing you can do about it. Lights out, just be okay with it is really all you can do about that. Now, astral projection. This may get a little more complex. I see it as more of kind of like a network computer system with a bunch of players playing a three-dimensional game. I believe that if this is the case, if it is a case that we are not actual spiritual beings, however we are spiritually connected, that we may actually be able to perceive or project a sort of bot into this virtual universe that is quote-unquote the astral world, which is really just a virtual simulation brought into effect by the conscious actions of all the conscious beings on our planet and probably the universe. So we have this massive network of quantum mechanics, going on, and it's all consciously connected to those brains or whatever other possible emergent devices that may be out there that have developed through other systems of evolution that connects us all. So we kind of get in tune with this, and we receive this information, and this virtual simulation is kind of like built out of this. So it really would be like playing a first-person shooter game over a network. This is how I believe you could actually have legitimate and verifiable spiritual, quote-unquote, experiences without actually being a spiritual being. Now, I've thought quite a lot about this, and I thought if this is possible, if in fact something like this were going on, and if in fact the reason why some of these, scientists that have decided to study the fringe sciences of spirituality have had some interesting results and have found some positive, not fully positive, but some indication that there may be something else going on. And if this in fact is what's going on, that just kind of blows everything else out of the water, right? I mean, in one hand, we've got the materialists who completely reject the spiritualists. However, on the other hand, the spiritualists may be onto something in that we are all actually connected, and spiritual experiences are legitimate experiences to a degree. So that's my thought on that. I've lately kind of been considering how you would actually test this kind of a networked mind kind of system where there actually isn't any spirit being within our in our bodies or coinciding with our bodies or a spiritual nature that's going to continue on after we die, but rather a networked interaction. That if this is the case, how would you tell the difference between an actual spiritual reality and a simulated spiritual reality that is still verifiable because it's a networked reality? In any case, if there is a networked reality, would it not be possible to at least come up with a methodology or a mechanism that might allow you to extract your consciousness and leave it as a sort of bot or a sort of floating disembodied consciousness and not a cluster, if you will, maybe almost like a torrent, something that kind of like exists out there, but it's not really out there. It's just kind of parts and pieces of it that interact with itself among all the other nodes and acts as a whole, but it's really not, kind of a thing. Is that possible? I think that's stretching it a little bit further than I want to. I think I'm already stretching it pretty far, but I think these are possibilities that we should consider. And if you are actually a true, sincere spiritual seeker, which I feel like I am, even though I am at my resting state as a secular atheist, I don't know if anybody's going to really get that, why I'm saying that. That's where I fall into the group. That's where I'm fitting right now. Because it's got to be proof based. If I can work something out and actually prove that something else is going on, maybe I'll take another step. But then I have to actually prove that there is an actual spirit body instead of a sort of networked gameplay going on, which could actually be a very real possibility if in fact spiritual experiences are verifiable, which is the next goal. So that's kind of my thought today, really. So yeah, it's time for me to go to bed and meditate. See you all later, and think about it.